Hi, Revelators. We are heading back into session 5, and this week we kick off with week 1 about Lutherans. What does it look like to be a Lutheran? So, along with the lesson this week, there is a section out of a book called Honoring Our Neighbor's Faith. There's also an introduction page there that kind of explains and breakdowns how each of the sections work. You'll see this every week. There's one that corresponds with each week of our different denominations and religions that we're studying. It's a really brief overview of that faith and of their basic beliefs and understandings. And then it makes a comparison for all of them except for the ELCA, because we are the ELCA. It makes a comparison between that religion and the ELCA and beliefs and kind of lines them up and helps us look at them together side by side. So take as much or as little out of that if you'd like to do it. If there's one that you're particularly interested in, read through the whole thing. If you're just preparing in the 10 minutes before you get here, take a look at that comparison chart that's on the last page for each section, and that'll help you get the gist of it. And you can always go back and read certain headings and sections that are interesting to you. So feel free to use that resource as you'd like to. Again, it's there for you. If you have more questions, if you need more information, if you're looking for more resources, please let me know. I have more things I can give to you. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, so I gave you kind of a bare minimum. But if there's more you're wondering about, or if there are questions that your kids raise that presenters don't get to, or we don't get a chance to answer, let me know. That's something I'd love to follow up with and get them more information about as well. Or if you have questions, I want to be able to answer those as well for you. This week, you'll also see that there are 3 charts included. One of those is kind of a family tree, for lack of better words, of how Christian denominations kind of developed. We're not going to deal with that a ton this session, but it's an interesting kind of backstory, interesting conversational piece to talk about with your group if you get to it. It can be an interesting reference as we talk about Catholicism and Lutheranism next week. There's also a chart that goes into a little bit more detail and describes the differences between different denominations. Again, a great conversation kind of backbone piece if your group has time for it, if you get to it, or if they're particularly interested in it. And the last one there is going to be a little bit more useful. We're dealing a little bit more this session with other religions than we are with other denominations. And that last chart is a comparison between different religions. And so that can be helpful, especially this first week, looking into, what are we going into? It'd be good for that question asking activity that comes up if you get to that. Otherwise, realistically, these are great references for you as a leader. They're great references for your students as we go into the next few weeks, dealing with new subjects and new presenters each week. So this Wednesday, we're starting at 6:30 in the sanctuary. And I'll have rows set out by small group. 9th grade will be in the middle section. 8th grade will be in the outer section. And try to sit together as best as you can. After that, you'll be headed straight into your small group rooms. We don't have a large group this week. I want to give you guys as much time to come back together and just check in after spring break and after Lent and see how things went, as well as to get through our activities tonight. When you kick off your small group this week after the combined worship, I really strongly encourage you to do the introduction to session 5 piece that's in your curriculum. It's really short. It's just a short conversation that asks a couple of questions about what do you remember from session 1 when we talked about hospitality. We did that listening exercise. If they don't remember much, don't worry about it, but let that be an opportunity to kind of kickstart their brains. And then it asks about what different religious or faith backgrounds we encounter on a regular basis. So it could be different for everyone. Realistically, you may work in a place that's very religiously diverse or very not religiously diverse. The same could be very true of their school. We have some students who go to private Christian or Catholic schools. We have some students who go to very public, very diverse schools. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of those intersections come together, and let them share about what they've seen, what they've heard, what they know, and really just let this be a very open conversation. I would encourage you as leaders to think about this as being a forum leader, as a forum discussion guide, more than being a leader in this conversation, especially as we go into the next 5 weeks. This is going to help you a lot to think about being a conversation guide more than anything else. because we're not here in this session to lead or teach as much as we are to help people think about things and help people have conversations. One of the main goals of this session is really to help us articulate our faith, and we're going to do that by looking at others' faith and kind of holding them up against each other and saying, what have we heard that sounds alike and what have we heard that sounds different, and how do we explain that and how do we articulate that so that when questions come up down the road, if they go to college, if they go to high school and someone asks them, what do you believe, they have something that they can reference. They've talked about it. They know enough. Okay, so the main part of the lesson this week is to put together a poster of what you know about Lutherans and Lutheranism. It's not necessarily the most exciting thing, but your confirmands have been doing this now almost a full year if you're in 8th grade and almost 2 full years if you're in 9th grade. And we've talked off and on about things Lutherans believe, things Christians believe. They may have already done the Apostles' Creed retreat. We've talked about the Ten Commandments. We've talked about Martin Luther. If they went through Fusion, they've got a bunch of those pieces as well. And so really, I want this to be an opportunity for them to draw on all of their knowledge and put all of their heads together and to come up with as many things as you know about Lutherans as possible and put this onto this poster. In the curriculum for this week, you'll see that there's a list of questions. Don't feel like you have to answer all of them, but they're there to help you get started thinking about, what do we as Lutherans believe about salvation? Well, you may want to look at Ephesians 2, 8, and 9 as a group and figure it out from there. You may want to hold it up against what others believe about salvation. You may look at it and say, well, Baptists believe this, but I don't think we do, and have that conversation. You may want to go onto Wikipedia and do some searching there or other websites. But like it says in the listing, don't let this poster be a representation of Wikipedia or other resources. Let this be a representation of what you as a group know. And if there are things on there that you're not sure of, that's okay. Go ahead and put them on there. As we go through things and as you learn more things, you can add to this poster and you can take things away from it as we go through this session. So there are 2 add-on activities in the lesson for you this week. The first one is a discussion of the text that we're going over in combined worship, and the second one asks you to put together questions for our upcoming speakers and for the next few weeks that you guys can kind of think about and come back to as time goes on. These activities are completely add-ons. If your poster takes the whole time, don't worry about it. You won't have missed much. If you guys blow through your Lutheran poster in 10 minutes and you've got 40 minutes till to kill, feel free to dive into these and go beyond. But I really would hope that you would have the chance to dive into these if there's the opportunity. There's some great opportunities for them to ask questions and to think more deeply about things we've already talked about, as well as what we might talk about in the next few weeks. Okay, so in the combined worship time this week, we're going to talk about one of the parables that we just talked about in the last sermon series. So they may have heard this before if they were in worship. But we're looking at Luke 14, 7 through 14. And really what's happening in this text is that Jesus is putting a message out there that's unlike what most of us even now think is comfortable. Jesus is really saying, if you're going to put together a banquet, if you're going to invite people in, if you're going to make space for someone, make space for the lesser. And it's countercultural. We want to give honor. We want to have the best people around us. We want to be at the best seat at the table. It's a little countercultural. And realistically, it could be a bit of a tough message. At the same time, for some kids, this is going to be a very obvious statement and obvious story. But one of the questions I think that you should really dive into here that has a good starting point for this session and for the weeks to come is using Jesus's parable as a starting point. So the story we just read, how can we show hospitality? And it's more than just the obvious, well, let someone else have the best seat. I'd hope that you could guide your group to having a discussion about listening, like we talked about in the first session, or talking about serving others or giving of themselves or sharing gifts or learning about other people. And I'd be really curious to hear what they have to say and how your conversations go. So please feel free to share how your conversations go around this activity if you get to it. Again, this is an add-on activity. It's totally optional for your group. If you don't have a group that digs into this kind of stuff, go ahead and skip it. But if your group really likes some hands-on Bible time, which I would hope they do, go ahead and dig into this. This is a good conversation to have. Okay, so the second additional activity that we have for this week is a questions activity. You're going to get 4 colored sheets of paper. Each is labeled with the 4 different religions and denominations we're going to talk about in the next few weeks and have speakers and watch videos on. And really, this is an open-ended activity. You can do this however you want to. As a group, you can brainstorm everything for one religion. So you could start with Islam, and as a group, write down everything you want to know about Islam. You could pass the 4 sheets around and let people write their questions down on their own. That way you don't have to say them out loud. You don't have to know who wrote what. You could spread them out and give everyone a sheet of paper and say, draw 4 boxes and then combine them all together, or just give me those sheets. That would be fine too. However this is going to work best for your group, I encourage you to do so if you get around to this activity. Some of your groups who have raised these questions before, and I know there are a few, feel free to make this a priority in your night and get through your poster quickly and then dive right into this and let this take up the rest of your time if that's what suits your group. These questions are what I'm going to pass along to our speakers as they prepare for each week. We have our first speaker starting next Wednesday, the 13th. Hector Bautista is coming to join us to speak about Catholicism from St. Ambrose. He's a great guy. He works with the youth over there, and so I think he's going to be a really good choice for our students next week. But be thinking about that with speakers coming in, that these are questions that they can really get answers to. So if there's something that they're wondering about above and beyond some of the questions that I brainstormed with our 8th and 9th graders at the start of the year, I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to share them with our speakers. And as always, at the end of your lesson, there is the take-home conversation, the at-home activity. This, again, is what gets sent out to parents every week. Feel free to do this with your own students, and feel free to reference this next week when your group comes back together to see, if they're having those conversations. If not, that's okay. We want to make this as optional for families that can do so or want to do so as possible, but we also do try to encourage them to try something new. And this series is a great series for parents to be involved with and be having conversations about as well. So if there are parents who are asking questions or wanting to do things, invite them to come to large group for the next 4 weeks. We'd love to have them. I've got lots of chairs. We'll make space for them. I'd love to see as many people taking part in these presentations as possible, because they're doing some great things, and it'll be fun to learn together and to share in this experience together. All right, leaders, I think that's everything I have for you. So if you have any questions, if anything comes up and you're like, I have no idea what's going on, please let me know. I can be reached email, phone, drop in. My cell phone number is at the bottom of all my emails. Feel free to call or text. Just be reasonable with time if ever there's a need. And I'm here to support you. So if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, I want to be able to help. I can't do that, though, if I don't know you need help. So I hope all is well. I hope you've had a great break and a great Lent. And we will see you on Wednesday.